Close look at the season from the science behind the vernal equinox.
On the equinox, the sun appears to be directly over the equator.
To getting your garden ready to grow. Gotcha. Right now on the National Weather Desk, on this first day of spring, we're taking a close look at the season from the science behind the vernal equinox.
On the equinox, the sun appears to be directly over the equator.
To getting your garden ready to grow.
Use a frost cloth or a tarp.
What scientists are doing to increase warning times for tornadoes.
We don't know what causes one storm to produce that significant hazard and one storm not.
And what you should do the next time a twister threatens your community.
You got to have a severe weather plan, an emergency plan to take action.
Plus, could spring allergy seasons be getting even longer?
We're not only having our plants produce for longer, they're producing more.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. Spring starts today, but you'll have to wait a few more hours to officially welcome in the new season. The vernal equinox happens at 11:06 p.m. Eastern Time. That's tonight, and that's daylight time. During much of the 20th century, spring actually started on March 21st. But thanks to the Gregorian calendar, that won't happen again until the year 2101. Meteorologist Marshall McPeak helps us better understand the vernal equinox.
You know how this begins. We have the sun, and the Earth travels around the sun once every year, and in the process, we get seasons. But the reason we have those seasons is because the Earth is tilted at 23.5 degrees. So when the southern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun, then we in the northern hemisphere have winter. When our part of the Earth, the northern hemisphere, is pointed toward the sun, we get summer because more of the sunlight is directed at that part of the Earth. But on the equinox, the sun appears to be directly over the equator. So that's when all of the Earth has the same amount of daylight. It's almost as if our 23.5 degree tilt has been uprighted because it's hitting the Earth perpendicularly.
And when it comes to our weather this spring, it appears the season will be unusually warm. The Climate Prediction Center's outlook calls for above average temperatures for most of the country. New England and the Pacific Northwest have the best chances for a warmer than average spring. The temperatures are driven by the weakening El Nino weather pattern, and the likelihood we'll see La Nina return later this summer. And spring is when most people think about getting outside and starting their backyard cleaning and vegetable gardens. But before you head out, keep nature in mind. Meteorologist Christina Ernie explains.
Now that we're headed into spring, you'll be finding yourself spending more time outside, but you're going to want to hold off before breaking out the rake or starting to garden. And it all has to do with the birds and the bees. Well, more specifically, the bees and our invertebrates like butterflies and insects. So March through May, these insects are nesting in your piles of leaves and brush left over from last season. The sensitive bee population is waiting for fruit tree blossoms before they emerge. So how do you know when it's safe to clean the yard so you don't harm them? It's easy. The 3 B's. Number 1, be patient. Even as the temperatures warm into the next few months, overnight temperatures are still cold. Wait until morning lows are in the 50s, which in New England happens in May. Another general rule of thumb is when it's safe to plant tomatoes, your bees are probably out and about and safe. Number 2, be observant. Your dried plant material is their home. They use it to protect their eggs or cocoons. And some species stay there actually until May after heavy spring rains are done. So if you hear of big storms or cold snaps on the way, wait until those pass. And finally, be respectful. These bees are pollinators. Without them, our flora suffers. So keep your green thumbs in your pockets until Memorial Day weekend, especially for the cooler states, that is, when it's safe to start gardening, and keep pets and insecticide away from these areas too. For the National Weather Desk, I'm Christina Ernie.
And of course, the risk of frost and freeze is still very real in most parts of the country. Meteorologist Brandon Lawson has tips on how you can protect your plants from the cold.
Frost forms on nights where you have temperatures that are near or below freezing. Again, temperatures don't always have to be below freezing because we measure temperatures a little above the ground. So at the ground level, temperatures might be below freezing or at freezing, and you got that dew forming on your plants, and that's causing, again, that frost and that freeze to happen on your plants. But what ends up happening above the ground level where we measure the temperature, it might not quite be at that freezing mark. So always remember, temperatures can be close to freezing and you can still have that frost form. Also, on nights where you have clear skies, this is what helps us cool down rapidly. And then calmer wind nights too. You don't want a lot of winds for frost. The reason why is because that can mix warmer temperatures around at the surface, and that can actually prevent that frost for your plants. So it's actually good for your plants, but bad for frost to have stronger winds. So let's talk a little bit about how you can protect those plants this spring season. A lot of folks will use 5-gallon buckets to do this. Remember though, 5-gallon buckets are usually made of plastic, and that plastic can burn your plants. So you can actually harm your plants with the 5-gallon buckets. So what I suggest doing, use a frost cloth or a tarp first. Put that over your plant, then put the 5-gallon bucket over top of that, and that'll provide that extra layer of protection, not only for protecting your plants from frost or the freeze, but can also protect your plants from that burning from the plastic of the bucket. You also can use lights to maintain heat with your plants too. If you have a big outdoor garden and you have a big tarp over it, you can put what's called brood lights in those tarp areas, and that can actually maintain heat of your garden. A lot of people will do this. Again, you can get a lot of these items at hardware stores. 5-gallon buckets, the frost cloths, the tarps, and the brood lights as well can all be found at those hardware stores to protect your plants this spring season.
Well, the start of spring does have an impact on your health, both good and bad. The Ron Zahn is in Seattle to explain.
The arrival of spring doesn't just mean a break from wintertime weather. It actually has an effect on our bodies. We produce less melatonin in spring, which improves our mood and can mean less depression. We also increase the production of serotonin. That also lifts our mood, and we get extra vitamin D from the extra daylight. One health drawback to the arrival of spring, a lot more allergies.
Those allergies are a major problem in spring. Ask me how I know. And in many areas, the pollen is already out in full force. So how are longer allergy seasons here to stay? What can you do to reduce the effect? Meteorologist Sonia Stevens finds out.
Sneezing, sniffling, coughing. For those that suffer from seasonal allergies, these symptoms can last from the spring through the fall.
People frequently focus on the yellow, and that tends to be a pine pollen, which really interestingly, because of the size of that pine pollen, is not a respirable allergen. So while it can sort of, mistakenly be perceived as such, it tends to be more of the cedars and the oaks and the willows and a variety of other things.
This time of year, it's the trees. The growing season for everything is longer, according to a recent study by Climate Central, which ultimately means longer exposure to their allergy-inducing pollen.
In the presence of more carbon dioxide, that is one of the greenhouse gases that is causing climate change, plants are producing more pollen. So we're not only having our plants produce for longer, they're producing more.
It's a trend, especially across the eastern half of the country, according to Climate Central. We are already seeing the impact in our area.
Seasons are a really tangible way that people see how the climate is changing today, and that it's not a future problem. It's something that we're all experiencing right now.
Which is why now is a good time for allergy sufferers to get to the root of the problem.
The importance of seeing a board-certified allergist or ENT for the purpose of identifying what a person is uniquely allergic to.
And speaking of flowers, bluebonnets are now blooming across Texas. The state flower is expected to peak in early to mid-April, but anyone driving around Texas can tell you that they're already here. And you can find many of them along state highways. In the 1930s, the Texas Highway Department hired a landscape architect to maintain, preserve, and encourage wildflowers. Department rules also delay all mowing until spring and early summer wildflower season are over. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, spring is the most active time for tornadoes. We're going to look at the new cutting-edge research the National Severe Storms Laboratory is doing to cut down on tornado warning times. Plus, a look at how farmers protect crops from early spring freezes. But first, let's take a look at some spring flowers on Alabama's Gulf Coast.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with Look at the Northeast. We have a fair amount of sunshine returning to the Northeast today, with temps starting in the 30s. Afternoon highs will top out in the low 40s. Notice more clouds developing, particularly back into New York, where there are some snow showers developing as well. Now, our next week weather maker will bring some rain showers and snow showers over northern sections. Best chance for light accumulations will probably be in the mountains. The bigger story this week will be the invasion of colder conditions and windy conditions on Thursday.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Bailey. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. Tuesday is going to be pretty similar to what we had on Monday, but we could see a few more clouds in there. Otherwise, we're pretty dry, and that will stay that way likely all the way until we get closer towards Friday. Just a few passing clouds, perhaps a sprinkle as we move into Wednesday. Temperatures will be pretty chilly again. We're talking highs only in the low 50s, but we should get a good deal warmer as we head into Wednesday. I'd say highs could reach easily the upper 50s to mid 60s.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Charlotte Carl. Temperature is still nice and comfortable today behind that front that moved through over the weekend. We have the 50s for the most part, 60s for some of us, especially along the coastline, 70s down in Florida. Nothing much to talk about in terms of rainfall over the next few days as we have high pressure settling in over the area, minimizing that cloud cover in addition to that rainfall. We're going to continue this quiet pattern into the second half of this work week. We reintroduce some rain chances going into Friday.
The National Weather Desk.
Warmer spring temperatures bring a more unstable atmosphere, increasing the chances of tornadoes. Emily Gracie spoke to a research scientist at the National Severe Storms Laboratory to find out about the cutting-edge research they're doing to improve tornado warning times.
One of the biggest advancements that we've made is in the tornado warning lead time. We've gotten really good at predicting large-scale, generic type environments that are supportive of storms that are likely to produce tornadoes. But one of the challenges that we face now is that, we may have an environment and say there's 4 or 5 different storms and they're all in the same environment and one of them is producing a tornado and one of them isn't. We don't understand those differences. We don't know what causes one storm to produce that significant hazard and one storm not, even when they're in the same environment. And that's been the focal point of the last probably 5 to maybe 15 years or so, is actually really honing in on the fine scale details on individual storms and trying to understand how those environments are producing those hazards.
Tornadoes are kind of what nightmares are made of, but you guys are handling a lot of other severe weather types. What other work are you doing? Because you handle floods and hail. What else are you studying?
I mean, we basically study the whole gambit, the whole spectrum of severe weather, whether that be tornadoes, lightning, hail, hurricanes. I mean, we've got groups that go out into the mountainous regions in the West and study debris flow based on, heavy rainfall patterns and how that impacts, irrigation channels and stream beds and things of that nature. We've done projects where we look at lake effect snow bands.
For those who don't know and have never heard of NSSL, where are you located? Can people come visit? Because I'm expecting this is just a cool lab where all sorts of crazy stuff's going on. Can people come watch?
Absolutely. So the National Severe Storms Laboratory is located in Norman, Oklahoma. There's an entire building basically that we have dedicated to weather research, and the University of Oklahoma's School of Meteorology is in here. The Norman's, WFO, the Weather Forecast Office from the National Weather Service is in here. The Storm Prediction Center is in here. Our Cooperative Institute is in here that does a tremendous amount of research and, helps us with a lot of our work as well. It's basically a mecca of weather research in all aspects, and you can absolutely come visit.
And to go more in depth on tornado research, make sure you check out this week's episode of our podcast, Off the Radar. Dr. Waugh and NSSL were heavily involved in the upcoming new movie, the new Twisters movie, and he shares some insider info. Find Off the Radar anywhere you listen to podcasts. So if you were in an area at risk of a tornado, would you know what to do and how to prepare? Let's turn to meteorologist John Gum to learn about tornado safety and preparedness.
Well, it is springtime across the country, and springtime means severe weather season. Unfortunately, we've seen damaging tornadoes causing not only damage but fatalities across the nation. So now's the time to prepare. Know what you would do in the event of a tornado. You got to have a severe weather plan, an emergency plan to take action. When a tornado watch is issued, that means we're watching for the possibility of tornadoes. The conditions are favorable for tornadoes in the watch area. But when a warning is issued, well, that's when you have to take action. and you want to have that emergency kit ready to go as soon as the watch is issued. But when the warning is issued, you have to get to your safe place ASAP, as soon as possible. Make sure, if this watch is issued before you go to bed, that you have some shoes ready to go. That's something folks don't think of because these tornadoes can create debris, and you don't want to be without your shoes if a tornado should hit and you have to step through all that debris. Also, if a warning is issued, make sure you get to your safe place. Where's that going to be? Well, the lowest floor of your home or business, the best place to be. Get as low as possible. If you can put as many walls between you and the outside of the home as possible, that's your best bet. So a hallway, under a stairway, in a bathroom, especially in the interior bathroom that doesn't have windows, even a closet. Those are some of the best places to be. Of course, in many parts of the country, we have basements. And if you have a basement, that is the absolute safest place you can be in the event of a tornado. For the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist John Gum.
Now, hurricanes in spring are rare, but they do form in the Atlantic from time to time in May. This map shows you the only hurricanes since 1889 in May. They include 1970's Hurricane Alma. It became a hurricane near Jamaica, but was downgraded to a depression by the time it made landfall north of Tampa, Florida. Now we turn to the mountains of North Carolina, where apple and peach growers have been monitoring evening and overnight temperatures. It's a nervous time of year for farmers because a freeze could damage their crops. Taylor Thompson has more about their concerns.
Spring in the mountains is unpredictable.
Terry Kelly says cold snaps this time of year are expected and that apple farmers are in better shape now than they were this time last year.
Last year we just had a really warm February.
Adding that the blooms are a bit farther behind right now, which is good when it comes to dealing with freezes.
We're very hopeful, particularly in apples, that we're still in pretty good shape right now. Peaches may be a little more susceptible.
It all just depends on how cold it gets and how long we stay there.
That's the equation every year is, it's temperature and time. It's just a lot harder with an orchard, it's just you're covering a lot of territory, you've got tall trees, and it's just a different animal.
So here's a good example. These are pink ladies.
Apple farmer Trey Enlow says he's still feeling pretty optimistic going into Tuesday.
I think overall we'll be okay. We're still, dormant enough.
But that it's really all dependent on the bud stage.
Fortunately, right now, most stuff is still pretty tight and pretty hardy. But as they open up, they become more exposed, and that's where they can take damage.
And that the concern will really come if the temperature drops below 28 degrees because that can cause damage. But Kelly says it's important to keep in mind that it only takes around 20% of the blooms on an apple tree to make a full crop.
If we lose a few here, it's not going to be the end of the world.
And at the end of the day, farmers say they can't control the weather and that they're counting their blessings that if they have to see a freeze, that they're seeing it now rather than 3 weeks from now.
And we continue our countdown to the solar eclipse across America, now less than 3 weeks away. We thought today we'd give you a closer look at the exact path the eclipse is going to take on April 8th. And to do that, we turn things over to Rhode Island meteorologist Christina Ernie.
So if we head through our tracker here, according to NASA, we'll be seeing this path initially start right over Texas, around Dallas and Fort Worth, around 1:41 p.m. Central Time. It continues its track, heading through Arkansas, and then eventually it'll be stationed right over Indianapolis, right around 3:06 p.m. Eastern Time. It continues its track, eventually passing over Ohio, right across Cleveland around 3:15, and then heading over Lake Ontario, Rochester, and Buffalo, New York, right around 3:20. Around this time is when we'll start to see that darkness take over as well. It crosses right over Burlington, Vermont, just shy of 3:30, and right around that 3:30 time frame, crossing New Hampshire, heading into Maine, and then eventually sliding right into Canada.
And stay with the National Weather Desk as we count down the days until the April 8th eclipse. We'll have 3 hours of live coverage during the eclipse. We'll have much more posted on our YouTube channel. Just search the National Weather Desk and be sure to subscribe while you're there. And as we head a break, we take a look at tulips in bloom last year in Washington State.
Well, a very good Tuesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. Look at all the sunshines and 60s out across the middle part of the plains and the southern plains. We got some light lake effect snow across the Great Lakes, kind of wrapping up, trying to move its way out of here. Heading into the day tomorrow, temperatures cooling down for most of the Midwest for the day tomorrow. Look at that, only a high of 29 in Bismarck. As we continue on into your Thursday, got some snow moving into the northern plains, and temperatures still a little bit cooler.
Good Tuesday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Chris Suchan. Look at a forecast across the region. A chill in the air early this morning, 30s and 40s, your out the door temperature. It'll stay in a cool 60s to low 70s across the region through the afternoon. Sunshine, a little cloud cover in South Texas. Wednesday, we're going to warm up into 60s and 70s, a little bit more cloud cover. And we do get late Wednesday into very early Thursday, a chance for a severe storm or two, wind and hail, but very isolated on the coverage.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Rebecca Stevenson. Here's what's happening across the West. A remarkable warm up. For parts of the inland Northwest, we're going to have record-breaking heat. And that's all going to stretch from Oregon all the way down into Nevada and Utah as well. Now, all this warm air being brought by high pressure, but it's an upper-level low pressure for parts of the Southwest and California, around Arizona especially. We're going to have some showers and a few mountain snow showers. That's the scene from here.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
The Eagles in this tree may not have a bunch of hit songs, but take a listen to this tune. It was recorded Monday morning in Utah. In Traverse City, Michigan, the promise of approaching spring as these primroses bloom through the snow. Now to Washington State and a look at Deception Pass Bridge during the golden hour.
Listen to Off the Radar. New episodes every Tuesday. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.
Let's check on some weather in cities across the country today. And we start in Macon, Georgia, where an overnight freeze warning expires this morning. Today will be sunny and cool with highs near 60. Chattanooga, Tennessee also had sub-freezing temperatures last night. It'll also be sunny there, but just a little bit cooler than Macon with highs in the mid to upper 50s. Iowa could see some snow later this week when two storm systems bring winter weather back to the Midwest. This morning in Cedar Rapids, it's mostly sunny but windy with temperatures in the mid to upper 60s. And finally, a look at the Rhode Island State House in downtown Providence. Southern New England is looking at partly to mostly cloudy skies today. It'll also be breezy with a high of 46 degrees. For more great weather content, search National Weather Desk on social media. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. Make it a great Tuesday, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.